The story of America has always been about strength, resilience, and the ability to overcome challenges that seemed insurmountable. But as we look toward the years ahead, and in particular to the moment we find ourselves in now, it is important to recognize that the greatest dangers to this nation may not come from foreign armies or distant powers. Instead, they may come from within, from the divisions that cut across communities, from the polarization that paralyzes our institutions, and from the erosion of trust that undermines the very idea of democracy itself. These are dangers that are less visible than missiles or tanks, but in many ways more dangerous because they attack the soul of a nation rather than its body. The foundation of any democracy is trust in each other, trust in institutions, and trust that even when we disagree, we are bound together by a common purpose. Without that trust, the walls that hold up our society begin to crack. We live in an age where information spreads faster than ever before, but so too does misinformation. Where debates once focused on ideas and policies, now they too often devolve into battles of identity and loyalty. When citizens no longer believe in the integrity of elections, when facts are dismissed as opinions and opinions treated as facts, the very ground beneath democracy begins to shift. A nation can have the strongest economy in the world, the mightiest military, and the most advanced technology, but without faith in its institutions, it risks collapse from the inside. Division has always existed in America, but what makes this moment different is the way that division is being deepened and exploited. Political battles are no longer about compromise, but about conquest. The language of us and them has seeped into every conversation, whether it be about race, religion, or ideology. When neighbors see each other as enemies, when communities withdraw into echo chambers where only their own views are affirmed, unity becomes harder to sustain. The danger is not disagreement itself. Healthy disagreement has always been the lifeblood of democracy. The danger comes when disagreement hardens into contempt, when political opponents are no longer seen as fellow citizens, but as existential threats. That is when democracy is at its weakest. History offers warnings. Great powers rarely fall simply because they are defeated by outsiders. More often, they fall because they rot from within. Rome did not collapse overnight because of invaders at its gates. It declined over time because of corruption, division, and the loss of civic virtue. The same is true for many empires and nations throughout history. Their strength was not taken away, it was surrendered piece by piece as they allowed internal conflict to erode their unity. For America, the lesson is clear. The gravest threats to its future lie not across oceans, but within its own borders if it fails to maintain the bonds that hold its people together. This is not to say that division cannot be healed. America has seen darker times before, times of civil war, economic collapse, and social upheaval. Each time, the country emerged stronger, not because the divisions disappeared overnight, but because enough people chose to see themselves as part of something larger than their own tribe or interest. The danger today is believing that such healing is automatic, that the fabric of democracy can repair itself without deliberate effort. It cannot. It requires citizens willing to engage in dialogue, leaders willing to put country above self, and institutions willing to protect truth over partisanship. Without these, the cracks widen. Trust, too, is not a given. It is earned day by day through transparency, accountability, and integrity. When leaders place ambition above service, when they exploit fear instead of nurturing hope, they erode that trust. And when citizens lose trust in leaders, they often lose trust in one another. That cycle is corrosive, and once it begins, it is difficult to reverse. The challenge for America in 2025 is to restore trust where it has been broken, to renew faith in the promise that government is not an enemy to be feared, but a tool to be used for the common good. There is another danger: complacency. The belief that America is so strong, so exceptional, that it can never falter. History teaches otherwise. Strength is not a permanent state. It is a choice sustained through sacrifice and responsibility. If citizens withdraw from civic life, if they disengage from the democratic process, if they stop believing their voices matter, then democracy weakens. Authoritarianism does not always arrive with tanks in the streets. Sometimes it arrives quietly, when people stop caring, when they accept cynicism as the only reality, when they no longer defend the principles they claim to value. This is why unity is not a slogan, but a necessity. Unity does not mean sameness, nor does it mean the absence of disagreement. It means remembering that differences of opinion do not make us enemies, that diversity of thought and identity can be a source of strength rather than weakness. It means holding on to the idea that the American experiment is not finished, that its success depends on every generation choosing to believe in it again. The danger of this moment lies in forgetting that lesson, in allowing anger or despair to fracture the bonds of community. The challenges of the future will demand a strong America, strong not only in weapons and wealth, but in spirit. The strength of a nation rests in its people's ability to trust each other, to argue fiercely but fairly, to disagree without dismantling the system that protects their right to disagree in the first place. Without that strength, America risks being hollow, appearing powerful on the outside but fragile on the inside. That is what makes the internal risk so dangerous. The future of America will not be decided only by its adversaries abroad, but by its choices at home. The danger is real, but so is the opportunity. If citizens confront division with dialogue, if leaders choose integrity over ambition, if communities defend trust against cynicism, then the story of America will remain one of resilience and renewal. But if those choices are ignored, if unity is abandoned, then history may one day say that the greatest danger to America was not an external enemy, but its own unwillingness to protect what made it strong in the first place. As the world moves deeper in the 21st century, the challenges facing America do not come solely from within its borders. Beyond the issues of division and trust at home, the nation must also contend with an international landscape that is changing faster than at any other time in recent memory. The future will not wait for America to catch up. Technology is evolving at a breathtaking pace, the climate crisis is intensifying, and new centers of power are emerging across the globe. The question is not whether these forces will reshape the world, but whether America will adapt quickly enough to lead in that new world, or whether it will fall behind. One of the most urgent challenges is technological change. In the span of just a few decades, the tools humanity relies on for communication, commerce, and even survival have transformed completely. Artificial intelligence, automation, biotechnology, and cyber capabilities are not abstract ideas. They are realities shaping daily life and rewriting the rules of the global economy. These technologies hold tremendous promise, promises of medical breakthroughs, smarter energy systems, and new ways to connect and learn. But they also pose real risks. Jobs are disappearing as machines grow smarter. Personal privacy is at risk as data becomes more valuable than oil. Nations are racing to weaponize technology in ways that could destabilize security. In this environment, America cannot afford complacency. To stay strong, it must lead not only in creating new technologies, but also in setting ethical standards for their use. Leadership is not just about invention, it is about responsibility. Climate change represents another test, one that is as much about survival as it is about leadership. Rising seas, stronger storms, and unprecedented heat waves are no longer distant predictions, they are here. These forces do not care about national borders or political debates. They are reshaping how people live, where they can farm, and even which parts of the world will remain habitable. America has the resources and the innovation to help drive global solutions. Investments in renewable energy, sustainable infrastructure, And green technologies are not just environmental choices, they are economic opportunities. The question is whether America will seize those opportunities or surrender them to others. If it fails to lead on climate, it risks both its environment and its influence, because leadership in the years ahead will belong to the nations that commit to protecting the planet, not exploiting it. At the same time, the geopolitical order is shifting. For much of the past century, America stood at the center of international affairs. But now new powers are rising. China has expanded its influence across Asia, Africa, and beyond. India, with its massive population and rapid growth, is demanding a larger voice in global institutions. Regional powers in the Middle East, Africa, and South America are asserting their independence. The result is a world that is increasingly multipolar, where no single country can dominate as it once did. In such a world, America's success depends less on its ability to act alone and more on its ability to build alliances. Partnerships with Europe, cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, engagement with Africa and Latin America. These are no longer optional. They are essential. Isolation may feel like strength in the short term, but in the long run, it leaves America vulnerable and sidelined. The economic dimension of these external challenges cannot be ignored. Global trade is changing, with supply chains shifting and new markets emerging. If America fails to invest in its own competitiveness through education, infrastructure, and innovation, it risks losing ground to nations that are hungrier and more agile. Prosperity is not a guarantee. It is the result of preparation and vision. In a global economy, no nation thrives in isolation. To lead, America must compete, and to compete, it must equip its people with the skills and tools that the future demands. What ties all these challenges together? Technology, climate, geopolitics, and economics is the need for leadership that is forward-looking. Leadership that sees beyond the next election cycle and plans for the next generation. Leadership that understands strength is not measured only by military budgets, but by the ability to inspire cooperation and shape a shared future. If America focuses only on preserving old advantages rather than creating new ones, it will find itself reacting to change rather than driving it. And in a world that moves as quickly as ours, nations that react too slowly are left behind. These external challenges also demand something deeper, a willingness to embrace humility and cooperation. The days when America could dictate terms to the world are fading, but the days when it can lead through example and partnership are still ahead. When America invests in peace rather than conflict, when it supports innovation rather than fear, when it champions justice rather than power for its own sake, it strengthens not only its position but the trust of others. Trust, once lost, is hard to rebuild. But when earned, it creates alliances that endure even through crisis. The dangers of 2025 and beyond are real. They are not distant threats, but present realities. Climate disasters, technological upheaval, shifting power balances. The real danger is not that these challenges exist, but that America could fail to meet them with vision, courage, and unity. If it withdraws into itself, if it chooses short-term comfort over long-term planning, it risks not just influence but relevance. Yet if it embraces the future with confidence, invests in its people, builds coalitions, and sets the pace for ethical and sustainable progress, then these challenges transform into opportunities. Opportunities not only to preserve its own strength, but to lift others as well. The external challenges of this era are a test of whether America can adapt, innovate, and lead in a world that will not wait. They are a reminder that power in the modern age is not about dominance, but about cooperation. And they are a call to remember that the future will not be shaped by fear of change, but by those bold enough to shape change itself.